Welcome back to Sip and Grow. I hope you guys have tuned in to my first episode. It came out on Friday, September 1st. If you haven't watched that, go ahead and watch it. If you're just here to watch me taste wines, today is the perfect day because we're tasting our first wine ever on the podcast. And if you haven't already, grab this freebie. If you go to the link on my bio, on my Instagram, TikTok, YouTube channel, all my social platforms, on my personal Instagram, the Sip and Grow podcast Instagram, all of the platforms, you can go ahead and grab this aroma wheel. I will be using this to taste this beautiful Italian wine we have today. Of course, the wind decides to blow super violently as I start to film, but it's all good. It's all good. We have the sun in our face, giving us this beautiful light. So grateful for the sun. I might be blind by the end of this episode, but it's fine. We're gonna be happy because we're gonna be trying a really good wine today. Anyways, welcome. As you can tell, I am at a vineyard currently. It's the background. This is not a backdrop. This is life, like real time. And I kind of wanted to sit down here today with you and explain how I got here. So if you haven't read my story on my Instagram, basically I studied wine for about a year, about 10 years ago, and it's always been a dream of mine to own a vineyard and become a sommelier. But I kind of put that on hold to pursue my hospitality and events management career. And fast forward 10 years later, decided to create something for myself, which is this podcast and a business surrounding my passion, which is tasting beautiful, delicious wines. And also just, I love talking to people and having deep life conversations. So this is what we're doing. We're sipping, we're growing, we're doing all the things. And basically, in the beginning of this year, I really sat down and thought about, okay, like now that I don't have a typical 9-to-5 job, like what is it that I can create for myself that I'm gonna enjoy and also bring value to other people through what I'm passionate about. So I've always known about doing like a wine harvest at a vineyard. I just never had the time to do it because I was working all the time. And then this opportunity, like all of a sudden, randomly, I was like, oh, why don't I research how to do a wine harvest? Like, I remember in my wine class, my teacher had talked about it, and I started doing some research, and then I was like, well, if I do this, then I need to make sure I find a place where I can stay because, I'm from the East Coast, Miami, and I was like, if I'm gonna go to Sonoma or Napa, I need to find somewhere where I can stay and just kind of, experience firsthand what it takes to actually run a vineyard and everything surrounding a vineyard. So that's ultimately what I did. I researched it and I found this place, which their application process was basically sending a cover letter and your resume to the job posting and basically explaining why you want to do a wine harvest. So I wrote my cover letter, sent my resume in on a Friday, and then the following, it was either Monday or Tuesday. Yeah, it was like Monday or Tuesday. I get a response to do a Zoom interview. We do the Zoom interview, and then 2 hours after the Zoom interview, which by the way, that Zoom interview, I don't know about you guys, but when I do interviews, all of a sudden, don't know how to speak. I'm super nervous inside. I think I do terrible. And then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, well, at the end of the interview, he was like, oh, we're interviewing a couple more people and then we'll let you know once we make the decision. So after I was really nervous, didn't really expect anything because I went into this thinking like the worst that can happen is they say no. Like that is my motto for a lot of things. I'm like, well, you can try this. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. At least you tried it. It wasn't for you. So we move on to the next thing, right? So I was like, the worst that can happen is they tell me no, and or they don't even respond to me, which they did respond to me. I had an interview, and then like 2 or 3 hours later, I get an email, basically asking me if I want to join the team, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. And the cool part about this one is that they included housing. So I'm currently living on the vineyard in a, I would say, the best way to describe it is the way it was described to me in the Zoom interview. It's a rustic house. It's AKA a barn house. We have very friendly spiders in the house. I love Mother Nature, but the whole spider situation in the house is challenging. But I just thank them every day for protecting the house and my roommate and me from other bugs. But I respectfully tell them to stay in their lane and I will stay in my lane. I've had to kill a couple of them, but it's okay. We send them a lot of love and I'm sorry. But anyways, let's get to the wine. So before I left Miami, I had a dinner with a couple of close friends, which is where I went to this wine bar for the first time in Coral Gables called Sospiro. I met the owner there, Fabrizio. He's super nice. If you guys want to check it out, I 10 out of 10 recommend. He's very passionate about wines, and it was just an overall nice experience. And then after we went and had dinner at another restaurant, and we had this wine. So we were drinking Nebbiolo that night, so we wanted to continue drinking Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo is an Italian wine. Nebbiolo is actually the name of the grape. So in Italy, their whole system is usually what you'll find on the label, which this is the label. You'll find the region it's from, the grape that was used for this wine, and the producer's name. And usually Italians refer to the wines by the region, or like the varietal that was created in that region. And the Nebbiolo grape is in the region Piemonte, which is in English is Piedmont. Yeah, Piedmont. And Ratti, which I'll put a picture of the bottle so you guys can see a close-up of it. But Ratti is actually the producer, and this is a Nebbiolo 2021. So usually when you see the year that you see on a bottle is the vintage. It's what's called the vintage. So the vintage is basically the year the grapes were picked. So when you harvest the grapes, the picking of the grape is the most crucial point of the entire process, because that ultimately determines the flavor of the wine and like if it's good or not, basically. Because if you pick it at the wrong time, it could be too acidic or too sugary. There's a lot of things that can happen. So it's super crucial when you pick the grape for the wine, and to make sure the integrity of the wine is true to the grape. So interesting enough, I researched this producer, and it was actually pretty cool because he was basically this guy named Renato Ratti. He's really big in Italy, and they are in the Piedmont region, as I mentioned before. And then if you look on this bottle, it says Langhe. Langhe is basically, I believe it's like south and east of the Tanaro River is what I read, within the Piedmonte region. And Langhe is where Nebbiolo, Nebbiolo is the grape name, right? And within the Piedmont region, it's the two most common like wines that are made out of there is Barolo and Barbaresco. So Nebbiolo is like the young version of a Barolo or a Barbaresco. It's like the younger version, and it's half the price. But basically, ultimately, all those varietals are made from the Nebbiolo grape. So this is like in the area called Langhe within the Piedmont region is where this particular wine is cultivated, right? So I was researching the history behind this producer, and it's pretty cool because so Renato Ratti is this Italian man who had a son, and he created this huge legacy for like the vineyards, cultivating really good Barolo wine, or creating really good Barolo wines and Barbaresco wines. And if you notice on the label, it does say Ochetti. And what I read was, so the province of the region Piemonte had 5 borders. So way back when, history, right? Way back when, they actually there was these soldiers that had to protect the borders because there was a lot of people trying to like come in and take over. And one of the things that Father Ratti, Renato Ratti, did was he wanted to make a line of wines called a line of wines like paying a homage to these soldiers. So Ochetti is like the name in Italian for these soldiers that were protecting the borders. And there's a specific line of wines within the Ratti wines that they have that have these soldiers on their label. And every you'll see like throughout the years that they'll change the type of uniform the soldier was wearing because they wanted to have one from each year because of course the uniforms evolved each year that the soldiers were protecting the land. So if you research or look up, the Ratti Ochetti wines, you'll see the different labels with the different type of uniforms the soldiers had throughout the time. So I thought that was pretty cool. But let's get to the best part, which is tasting the wine. So I have a wine key with me. This is what a wine key is called. Usually what you have, I actually got this one. Yeah, I got this one in Spain when I went to go visit Brotos. It's a vineyard in Spain. And usually they have like a little knife over here to cut the label around, which I'll show you now. And then the corkscrew. And then this is to basically take out the cork. So let's start with this bad boy, the little knife, right? The proper way to do it, I was just gonna do it like the ratchet style, but we're not gonna do that. Before I open it, another thing the Italians have is like, you see this label here, the it's DOC label that it has here. This is like, they have like a controlled certification for wines, and they have like 4 tiers. So this is actually the second one. So this is like the second best certification for this wine, which I'm actually gonna have an entire PDF spreadsheet on the how to choose Italian wines, and it's gonna have all these information about the regions, the grapes, how you can walk into a store and pick an Italian wine that you would necessarily like. But this one is DOC, and the top one is DOCG. So usually DOCs are heavily like, they just basically like heavily monitor the process from, how you cultivate your grapes to harvesting them, to the entire like process that you run at your vineyard. And that's how you get this type of certification. So it's DOCG, DOC, then the third one is like, I forgot the name, but there's a third one. And then the last one is Vino Tavola, which is like table wine. But they have like 4 different sections, and it's, again, like I said, all in the PDF download that I have on my link in my bio. But let's go ahead and open this bad boy up and taste it real quick. So usually what you do is you gotta this is not the way I do it, which this is the proper way to do it, but you basically have to cut around the neck of the bottle over here until you get through the paper. And then what I like to do, we're just gonna do it the way I like to do it. There's like 2 holes at the top. So I like to, once I go around it like twice where everything is kind of clean and cut around the paper, I go into the top here, there's like a hole, and then I basically like cut it, right? And then I'll take it out with my hands and the knife until it looks pretty enough. Oh, this one looks good without me even like taking this out, but we're gonna not cut ourselves. We're gonna do this properly. Another fun fact about red wines specifically, so this one was stored at 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like, what is it, like 10 degrees Celsius, I believe. But it should be stored at, red wines, I think the best optimal temperature for red wines is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 13 degrees Celsius, so that you can get the best possible taste of this wine. So I stored it at 50 so that by the time I get out here, talk to you guys for a minute or two, it'll be just the right temperature for me to drink and taste with you guys. Wow, this wind is winding. The wind is winding. So now you see, perfect all around, very clean cut. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the corkscrew in the cork. I like to go in at an angle because sometimes the cork might break on you, and those are not fun times, but it is possible to get it out. But I don't think we're not gonna have that problem with this one. So we're gonna go in at an angle and just twist it in. And I usually like to go all the way down to like the last loop. I like to still see it. And then you just basically, there's 2 tiers on this silver part. So the first tier, I grip it like this and then pull up, right? And then you go to the second tier and then you pull up again. And then right before it's out, I just like to take it out like that. Is that the proper way to open it? I don't know, but that's the Nicole way to open it. So what I like to do is smell the cork so you can smell how the wine is. And usually like when you smell the wine, happens very little, but there's times where you might get a bad wine just because of the storage wasn't that great. But on the chart, there's a section that says faults. And basically like, if you smell it like vinegary or like rotten egg or like onion, like not very pleasant smells, then it's probably not drinkable. Just don't drink it. But anyways, let us get to the best part, right? The tasting. Let me just move my hair out of the way. So the way you, the way you hold the glass is basically by either the stem or the base, because you don't want to hold it like this because the body temperature of your hand basically will warm up the wine and change the taste of the wine. So this is a no-no. I mean, if you want to hold it like that, and that's, you do you. You do you. I'm giving you the inside scoop. But the proper way to hold it would be either by the stem or the base. And then, you can drink it like this. I've always thought this was kind of like weird. I just don't feel very comfortable holding it like this, but I have before. But I like holding it like this, right? You can even, little pinky action. So let's go ahead and pour this bad boy. And when you pour wine, it's like you gotta do that little flick thing, even though I'm like pouring it in the air. That's always fun. So let's go ahead and visually analyze this wine. So what I like to do is basically give it a swirl so that all the aromas get out, and you can really smell the wine, and see what comes up. But the first thing you have to do is basically get a white background and go against it and kind of just see the color of the wine, right? So for me, this wine is very ruby red. And usually when a wine is like ruby red or darker, and it doesn't lean so much toward like garnet color, it's like more like rubyish, darker, it tends to be a younger wine. And it's probably cultivated in like cooler climates. And then when it goes, let's see. Yeah. So like just by looking at this color, I can just tell the wine is young. So usually if it's like a garnet color, it means it's a little bit older. And if it's more of a red or ruby red, it's a younger wine, which in this case, this one, 2021, so it's fairly young because the vintage is 2021, right? So now let's go ahead and smell it. So I like to put my nose right here, give it a good whiff. Oh my God. And I'm smelling like strawberry, plum. It's very fresh. So very like crisp and fresh, very nice aromas. I even smell like, and when you start tasting, I love to use this, but when you do it more often, like it's like everything, right? Like when you start doing it more often, you get better at it. So don't be intimidating by picking up a glass and like smelling, and tasting it and doing the entire process, because this is the only way you will learn how to do a tasting. So I smell strawberries, raspberries, plum, and I even smell like a little bit of like licorice and leather in there, little leather action. And now let's go ahead and taste this wine. So usually when a wine is really tannic, you'll feel it sit on your tongue for a little bit. That's what it means. Like there's a lot more, and usually tannins, when tannins are present, it was probably, which I'm not sure if this was aged in oak, but usually, like to me, I'm getting oaky, leathery taste. And it's tannic because it kind of sits on the tip of my tongue and then goes down. I personally love tannic wines. My favorite kind of wines is the ones that make you like that type of wine. I don't know if that's the best description, but basically I love like leathery, peppery, oaky wines. That's not for everybody, but this one I would say is a good introduction to a Barolo, because it's not as intense as a Barolo. If you're not into strong tannic wines, I probably wouldn't suggest drinking a Barolo, because that one is a lot stronger. This is basically like the baby Barolo, because it's a younger version and a cheaper version because it's half the price. This bottle, I believe, was $27 at the supermarket. So it's not too bad. But a Barolo could run you anywhere between like 45 going to like the hundreds, 200s. I mean, if you were in Italy, it would probably be a little bit cheaper, but we're not. So here it would cost between that range. But Barolos, like if you enjoy a Nebbiolo, a Barolo is fantastic. But for me, I consider this wine very easy drinking, more towards the tannic side versus like the fruity. It is fruity, but it has its tannins. So like, if you're someone that prefers a rosé or a sweeter wine, you probably wouldn't enjoy this. But this is a good introduction to like heavier tannic wines. And if you are a fan of tannic wines, then this is like easy drinking. You can drink it's very versatile because you can drink it with a lot of different dishes. Like I would totally go for a rack of lamb with some potatoes with this, or I would even do a pasta with this, a pasta with like al tartufo nero, which is black truffle. Oh man, that sounds good right now. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed providing the wine and drinking the wine. And don't forget to download this aroma wheel. I think it's super helpful and it's a great introductory way to start tasting wines on your own. I just think it's a good reference point and just, you know, taste wines every day. They're delicious. I can't wait to do the third episode for you guys. Again, comment, let me know what you want to hear, because I am going to be bringing very interesting topics to each episode. But let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you tried the wine, if you like the wine. Let me know in the comments. Send me a message, DM me, comment on YouTube, comment on Instagram, TikTok, all of the platforms. I'm there. Anyways, I hope to see you guys in the next one, and thank you for watching.